So the topics about, of course, building the enterprise architecture team, right? Because people say that I already have my development team, I have my project management team, I have someone called a designer, or we call it solution architect. So what that has got to do with enterprise architect? Do I need to reboot my team, or do I need to start again, or do I need to restructure? Or if you think you believe it is, how do we hire? How do we train them? Right? So I think the topic is around that. Just now I mentioned about the importance of having the right digital enterprise architecture team, especially today in the era of digital transformation. So this is something, I think the message is quite loud and clear, right? When we are doing the project today and 10 years ago, you might be involved in the same team, right? You know, got the project manager, you got the lead, you got the developer, you got the system engineer, etc. But what makes you different 10 years ago and today? The only thing is that in the 10 years ago, when you involve in the project, you really think like your scope is basically limited, right? Basically, you know that your scope is clear and your integration is defined. But today, in the era of digital transformation, when you embark into a project, you need to open up the opportunity that whereby the scope may be expanded, and you might need to interface or to connect to the system or to the entity that are not so-called being considered in the early stage. So basically, something that are quite innovative, and something that you need to anticipating to be digitally connected, because we are living in the connected world today. And of course, if you don't use some sort of architecture, you may have a so-called digital project or digitalization initiative. But let me tell you, if you put that into the wooden piece like this, there'll be many overlapping. It's no different than what we call it stovepipe or island of information, right? Or island of system. Then at the end of the day, we may end up into a digital island. And you know what? Digital island in the cloud is very hard to integrate. It's just a mission impossible, right? So how do we prevent so-called end up into a digital island? So we need to have some sort of architecture to organize all the initiative that we are doing today. Okay, so I mean the era of digitalization has ended in 2010. So now we are at 2021, right? 11 years in the journey of the digital transformation that we need to move towards digitalization. And typically today, if you go to any senior management meeting, these are the typical questions they've been asking, right? Basically, they've been asking about the impact of this initiative. Can we don't do this? And what is the impact of not doing that? And etc. So basically, they got a lot of so-called question that we need to answer, right? About transformation. Then, of course, talking about capability, talking about investment. Because now is that, should we invest in this some amount of money? What do we get? What's the difference? We already have our CRM system. So why do we need to invest in the new system? So this is something that we need to know and we need to be able to answer. And of course, all this, once you answer one question, it will lead to the next question. So basically is that if you don't have a sound architecture in place, perhaps you can only answer 1 or 2 or 3 questions. But the rest, boss, can you give me 2 weeks or 2 months? Let me find out. In today's context, I don't think your boss will accept, okay, Aaron, I give you 2 months. You come back to me before December. No. Your boss will tell you, today is about 2 o'clock, 2 or 5. Before 6, can you give me the answer? So how do you get that answer? Okay. Of course, we need to have some sort of systematic and architecture to be able to answer all these questions. And with that, I think this is where the importance of architecture role, right? Or architecture team. Because if we actually, it's like, you know, in the war, they call it command and control, right? So you know exactly in the term of strategic planning, how to do alignment with the management, with the procurement, with the technology lifecycle, with your portfolio, with the change management. You need to have some sort of so-called control, or you know, in the enterprise is basically someone to glue everything, right? From the processes, from the team, from the technology. So enterprise architecture actually exactly playing this role. Perhaps now is that a few departments are doing that, but it's very hard for them to get the entire holistic or horizontal information about the organization. So architect is actually expected to play this role. And of course, in the era of the transformation, right, basically is that we now have a digital strategy. So this is where digital enterprise architecture actually help to formulate and also help to validate the strategy that we have, so that our transformation can go smoothly. Okay, instead of we just run typically is that we just run from the strategy go straight to the transformation. So we need to have some sort of the architecture to give us the feedback about our strategy, whether the validity, whether the impact or the analysis itself is relevant to fill up the gap that we exist so that our transformation can be successful. So the model basically is that how can we have a so-called digitally connected enterprise? That's very, very important in the today world is that because now like most of us are still working from home, right? Some of you are already in the office, but it's like the capacity, it cannot be fully all staff go into the office, right? Maybe 50% or 75%. So some of them, we don't meet them. So how can we still united? How can we still be connected? That's why I think the enterprise architecture now is playing a critical role. How to seamlessly integrate and all the function, the processes, the procedures, the technology in the entire enterprise. I mean, be it internally as well as externally. So these are some of the key takeaway, some from the Gartner. So this is Gartner made so-called an article in the 2016 that that enterprise architecture providing a gateway for the successful digital transformation. This I think something quite the power. The message is quite powerful because the transformation itself today, if we don't use the right method of architecture, you just execute it as just another project, except that with the title digital, right? And of course, in the 2019, the bottom there, so Gartner made a prediction that EA EA team, right? The importance of the enterprise architecture team internally, we play as a so-called internal management consultancy to the senior management in terms of the strategy validation, the direction, the goal, the motivation, yeah. And then in the 2020, Gartner made a prediction that EA enable organization to be intelligent, right? So intelligent organization means that the organization knows the surrounding, right? How do people tell you are intelligent? Oh, I know a lot of things, right? Not only know a lot of things, you also need to be able to interpret. So the same thing, the concept of the so-called enterprise architecture in the organization. If you already get the proper EA team that are fully trained and also established, it should be able to evolve organization towards more intelligent. Yeah. And of course, this year, 2021, so Gartner also made a prediction that EA design a composable organization. Composable means like now we can work anywhere, we can work anytime, in any anytime and anywhere, right? Basically, is that less constrained by the so-called the physical enterprise itself. So EA facilitate this type of the business-driven outcome. And of course, some of the analysts here that EA as a digital transformer, at EA is of course leveraging on the EA to so-called to tame, right, to reduce the disruption in the digital disruption. And of course, the disruption is that we cannot avoid them; it will be coming, but we should be able to cushion the impact, right? That's I think the objective about why we need to have so-called architect in our organization. And of course, architects are in a strong demand, right? I mean, actually, they got plenty of jobs, right? And of course, we have many requests from the organization to hire architects, but some of the job, even the project manager or even a director of operation, they need to have a requirement, some sort, the knowledge of architecture, because with that knowledge, you can streamline and you can transform the organization better. Yeah, so not only you carry the title of architect, but the knowledge and the experience expected to have or to possess for any professional, be it in the business professional as well as the IT professional. Yeah, and of course the scarce skill set in the big demand, right? So actually, yeah, they got the demand of architects, I think, in the market more than the supply. Okay, because they are looking for someone who can help to translate the business, right? The business problem with the technology. It's not about it's not really technical, but something that they know how to apply technology in the strategic way to help or to achieve business goal. So in terms of our country, I think you heard about MyGovEA. So if you are dealing a lot with the government, I think MyGovEA is still progressing, still strong, right? Established in 2015, and I think now they are going to roll out across ministry and agency. You can go to the website, you just search MyGovEA. Okay, the information is there from the entire public sector. And of course, if you are in the financial services, in the banking or insurance, or you are in the stock broking, etc. So Bank Negara also have made a mandatory for all the financial services in that institution. I think about 120 plus over 20 plus of them in Malaysia, right, require to establish enterprise architecture. Okay, you can go Google this RMIT BNM, then you can get the document. Yeah. And of course, PICOM also has adopted the national ES certification, right? Using the so-called the world global best practices from the ISA and the Open Group. Yeah? So it has been recognized, and yeah, it's going strong there. So what do you mean by enterprise architect? Maybe at this point in time, you're asking, hang on, Aaron, you're talking about a lot about enterprise architect. Can you tell me the definition? Right? So let me just borrow the definition from the building architect and the medicine, right? So there are two components here. There's an art and there's also a science, right? So if you want to be best in your career as a so-called building architect or as the best doctor, right, in the medicine, you need to be able to combine the art and science, right? Of course, in the context of the building architect is how to erect the building, to design the building, and of course you need to compute all the so-called the pillar, the structure, the foundation, etc. Same thing with the medicine, right? The doctor need to be able to feel about your illness, right? And how the doctor can prescribe the right medicine. So the same thing with the architects, right? The art and science of designing and delivering valuable technology strategy for the business. So basically, we need to focus a lot on the business. Of course, now the context of the transformation are playing an important role. How we can apply the right, technology and also the artistic part in terms of that, understanding the driver, understanding the goal, understanding the strategy, understanding the motivation, and also the political situation. Yeah, and we apply that correctly, then so that we can advance our business into the next level, right? Into the next maturity level. So enterprise architect typically dealing with a lot of the business team, right? So basically you need to be able, when you put the arrow like this, when we put you into the so-called the role that you are responsible to deal with the business team, we need to be able to speak the business lingo. That's mandatory, right? So if we speak SML and TCP/IP, the business team don't understand what we are talking about. The same thing when we go into the technical team, then we can become a mentor or coach for them, right? How to guide the implementation according to our architecture. And to management team also, we understand all their KPI, their concerns, their driver, and how we ensure them that, what we do is addressing all their so-called urging needs, right? Their pressing needs in terms of the so-called operation of the business. And of course, vendor supplier, we also need to manage them so that they don't push too much on the bias on the technology. We need to know what's the right technology for our environment. And stakeholders is also need to be managed, right? We need to be able to engage with them, right? We need to understand their driver, what make them cannot sleep at night, put it that way. We need to be able to address that. And of course, industry body, government, association, also we need to look after, right? Because they also set the regulatory and also the best practices is coming from there. So of course, now who can become an enterprise architect yesterday, right? At least typically you need to have experience of 10 years. So basically it's all in the mid-30s, right? Early 30s, mid-30s onwards. You want to become an architect. I mean, I'm talking about yesterday. Then of course, you also need to be lucky enough to perform various roles. So you know all the job in the organization, right? From business analyst, PMO, marketing, sales, finance, project management. Yeah. And this is also the third criteria. You fail in the couple of last IT project and burn millions of dollars, and you are not put in jail, right? So this is mandatory if you want to be a successful architect. Yeah. So the architects basically, I mean, in the past is people learn it through trial and error. The more mistake you do, the wiser you are. But now I don't think you can afford to do that, because now they got the proper training, they got the proper body of knowledge for us to jumpstart into this career, right? So that you don't burn millions of dollars of the investment that our organization has put in. So this is basically about today. So they got all the training courses, they got the program, that's why we're working now with MDEC, right? So that you don't do a mistake what other people did, right? We just go straight into implementing so-called the transformation, the digital transformation with enterprise architecture correctly for the first time. That's, I think, the aim of the program. And of course, they got multiple engagement on the so-called architect itself, right? So I think I want you to focus at the outer layers, right? The outer layers mean the in the perimeter, the outside. So the first one, they call it thought leadership. Thought leadership, I think, very, very important. So if we have the information, then we can suggest something. We understand the gap, then we can suggest something. So people regard us as the top leadership, right? Then on the right hand side, the corner there is customer journey transformation. This is also very, very important, because today in the era of digital transformation, our customer, our partner, our client expected us to have a seamless experience. So they don't want to say, hey, you go here, you connect that department. No, we want to have a single view, single window, right, of the all customer interaction. Then, of course, the bottom right there, on the right-hand side, skill set transformation about our employee, the productivity, right? We need to be able to assess information. Like now, I think we get used to it after, I think, coming to 2 years in the COVID pandemic, right? We get used with our skill set transformation. And of course, the bottom part is in the information transformation, whereby we need to consolidate and how to so-called orchestrate the information, right, to become a strategy for the business, as well as operating model and the digital business transformation. That's very, very key for the business survival. And this is the example on the way architect can put in across a different line of business or different division in the organization, right? So from the finance, sales, line of business, and also the IT, how you can basically work together, right, among various architects to collaborate together to define so-called the gap, to define the so-called the concern of the stakeholders, and develop a solution from it. Yeah, so architect not working alone, they got multiple role, right? So now the next, you can see that the next couple of slides, I'm going to zoom in into each of the role, right? What the enterprise architect do, what the business architect, information architect, solution architect, software architect, infrastructure, as well as security architect. Okay, so typically architect as an influencer to balance solution delivery. So basically we need to understand what are our enterprise point of view, right? And after we look at the technology and how the delivery team, right, the project management team, and also the stakeholders expectation. So this is a very, very so-called a noble job, right? Because you need to find the balance between them, right? You cannot be biased. Okay, let me just bias towards a technology alone, right? It is typically that if you don't know architecture, everything in my mind is only technology, only that particular platform. But we need to look the holistic way. Which one is we can balance up, right? So basically between the enterprise goal, the technology, the project delivery, and the stakeholders, we need to find so-called something that meeting in the middle, right? To make everybody happy, lah, put it that way. But we cannot make everybody super happy. But at least we make everybody happy, right? There isn't anybody that are not happy. That's, I think, the goal, the balancing act. So the model is something like this. So typically, if you have the project team, right, and then you have so-called your IT services team. So what happened is that the enterprise architecture actually coming in the project management office minus one. They call it EAO, right? So PMO minus one, whereby we can basically identify, right, what are the gap in the organization, what are the strategy, and how we can formulate it into a project, right? The project that has a real case, business case. That's where the so-called the realization actually in the PMO, in the current project delivery. And at the bottom there is where we need to have some sort of the single source of truth, right? You heard the word single source of truth. So in the enterprise is that it's very difficult to have single source of truth, because, you know, everyone busy in their own department, their own job. It's very difficult to have so-called the horizontal view of the organization. So that's why we need to have a repository for us to be able to see a single source of the information across enterprises. And the top one is where we need to have so-called an umbrella. They call it digital transformation office, right? So if your digital transformation office only have project management alone, it's very, very tough, because they are basically busy in the scheduling the business, scheduling the resources, on how to deliver system. But we need someone to have a so-called become a command and control, right? Which is what I call it enterprise architecture office, to drive the entire initiative of projects or transformation program. Okay, so let me just zoom in into the business architect, right? So there are role of the infrastructure, information, software, solution, and the business architect. So business architect actually is on, of course, the business technology strategy. And today we can call this person actually is a digital strategist, because this person understand what are so-called business aspiration, business driver, business goal, business strategy, and they know also the technology quite well. So they know exactly how to fit the technology to support and realize the business strategy. Yeah. So of course we can call this person also enterprise troubleshooter because he or she understand the impact of technology that bring to the business. So if you have the business architect attending the meeting, right? Perhaps it's the stakeholder meeting, and stakeholders have some concern, and then he or she can quickly pinpoint where could be the solution come from, or where could be the problem come from, right? So because he has the visibility of the entire enterprise. Then the next one, of course, information architect. So information architect is someone who knows the data dictionary and taxonomy governance, right? And of course, we call it information strategies because understand the whole information structure to support the business, and particularly in terms of the business decision-making process. Because sometimes that we cannot make decision or we scared to make decision. You know why? Because we don't have the data, we don't have the information. So if people challenge me, say, I don't know, don't ask me. But if I have the information ready at hand, I can explain. And why I suggest this type of initiative, because I can see the data. These are the so-called the gaps that we have. These are something, the opportunity that we have. Yeah. The next one is software architect. So basically looking at of course, the system, the software development, and of course the application in terms of the components and connectivity. This is very, very important. And of course, we can call it this person application strategies and design the application pattern to support the business. There's the clear message, yeah. We need to support the business. And of course, we can call the person also application troubleshooter and understand all the potential silo that need to be integrated, right? So that we can have a smooth or support the integrated business process flow. This is the job or the main role of the software architects. So whatever he or she does to make sure that connecting the entire application at the back end and how to have a smooth journey from the process, customer interaction, and also across multiple channels of the business. The next one on the infrastructure, right? So in the infrastructure also playing a critical role, especially today, everybody moving to the cloud, right? So we need to ensure that all the data center, the security, and also can support the business continuity plan, because we cannot get interrupted while we are doing so-called moving everything into the cloud or the centralized data center. So you can call this person is the technology strategist, right? So design the technology landscape to support the business. So whatever he or she propose need to ensure that are supporting the business goal, business driver, and business strategy. Okay, so you can call this person is technology troubleshooter, right? So understand all the technology disruption that may impact business continuity. So basically the job is that, I mean, if compared to other role, right? If your system is running smoothly, people may have forgotten about this role. Right? Say, I don't know about this role. But when the thing goes down, like the email down, you straight away remember this person, right? So a bit unfortunate, but we need this person to ensure that, you know, our thing are run smoothly. Yeah. And of course, the last one is solution architect. So solution architect actually also playing a critical role, right? Because this is where the architect you put into the project. So what they call it into the implementation governance, right? To ensure that all the system development, the software development comply, right? Or align with or conform with the architecture. Okay, otherwise you can come out a very beautiful architecture, but the execution actually is running from the reality. And the solution architect is, you can also call him or her as an IT strategist, right? And design the architecture solution for the system development and implementation to support the business. Because at the end, after you deploy the solution, it will be deployed back to the business. And of course, you can call this person is a system troubleshooter, right? Because this person understands the potential discrepancy between architecture and the system being implemented, right? Again, to support the business. So we need to be able to distinguish a different role of architect. I mean, that doesn't mean, just now I mentioned about 5 roles, right? That doesn't mean you need to have 5 people, but we need someone that you need to wear a different hat. Where are you? When you're talking about solution architect, then you can start talking about the technology, about the technical solution, etc. But when you are wearing the hat of business architect, you start talking the business lingo, right? You're talking about how the system can help to achieve a business goal, how to increase a business capability, and you need to be able to switch the so-called your knowledge depending on the what hat you're wearing. So these are actually the training courses that we do have, right? So basically at the bottom there, they got the supporting skill. So they got the DevOps. They are very, very important. Basically, the merging between the system development as well as the IT support, right? Of course, they got the ITIL is there. It's a very established so-called knowledge and also the body of knowledge for the so-called supporting the operation services of the system. And of course, enterprise governance with COVID, right, is the proven so-called governance framework to can be applied even within the IT as well as within the enterprise architecture. Then, of course, they got what they call it business IT architecture fundamental. Basically, it's about aligning business and technology together. Because what happened is that many, when the project don't turn out well, the business people will typically blame the IT people. They say what? The IT people don't understand what we do. But if we talk to the IT people, they say business people also they don't know what they want, right? They need this, but they don't what they want. They don't know, right? So it's very very a complicated relationship, I would say. So this training, like business architecture fundamental, actually is doing alignment between business and IT, so that they can work together, right? They can achieve the same common goal. So the next one is architecture core. So architecture core basically is about the journey to run the transformation, right? How to establish. I think actually it's like all my presentation today. But you put that into the scenario of an organization, how the organization in the firefighting mode, the CFO trying to cut the IT budget, and you are trying to show the value, you are stuck in between, and you start small, right? You start delivering value. So they got 17 workshop that will guide you through how you can basically, emerge as a winner, right? So you drive the entire organization transformation, right? With the right technology and also the right skill set based on the body of knowledge. Then the next one is basically about TOGA framework. So basically about how do we now set up the framework and methodology for the organization to guide us through a consistent transformation journey. Okay, that's called TOGA. Then after that, they got Archimate. So Archimate is how can we model so-called our enterprise. You heard the concept of the digital twin, right? How do we model the elements? I have the strategy. How can I model the strategy? How can I show the strategy connect to my application? That's why you can use the Archimate. Then of course they got the TOGA business architecture, basically looking after on how you apply the TOGA framework in the relation of the business architecture itself. Then they have a BTS, business technology strategy. So basically it's about how can you define a digital strategy, because business strategy and technology strategy by default are separate, right? So now we need to combine them, right? How can we work together between business and technology so you have only one strategy? So in the past, you heard about BSP, business strategic plan, and ISP, IT strategic plan. Now we merge that into business technology strategy plan. Yeah. Or in short, we call it digital strategy. Then after that, of course, got the specialization of business architect, information architect, infrastructure, software, and solution. So all these specialization lead us into so-called the next level to be able to see the connectivity and integration, right, among the enterprise entities. That's very, very important when we draft the transformation, because we need to have a complete information. We cannot have half-baked information, right? It's very, very dangerous when we make a wrong decision. Yeah. So the top layer is where we churn out the business architect specialization, information architect, infrastructure, yeah, and software as well as solution architect. So there's also customer journey mapping, whereby we actually now is very, very popular in terms of the mapping touch point by looking from outside in. So what I mean is that we typically now what we do is that many people are inside out. Inside out means we are working in this company. We are trying to portray what is customer facing with us, right? So we call it inside out, but outside in is totally different. We need to think through about we are coming from the outside and dealing with this entity company that you are in, right? So you can be brutal about it, you can be complaining about it, and how you resolve that problem, right? We call it customer journey mapping. Yeah. So basically, this is a graph, right? That are actually, you might call it, but you can just Google this so-called information. They got many prediction that actually many digital transformation today already fail and will fail. Okay, so 80% actually will fail, and the 20% will succeed, right? So as the journey continue, now it's 2021, 22, 23, 24, 25. You know what happened in 25? Still same, 80% fail, right? So many of them actually, the successful is very, very rare. Okay, and the successful actually you need to have enterprise architecture, because by doing enterprise architecture, you have the visibility about, you know, why the thing failed, right? It can be prevented right before you start the implementation. Yeah. So with that, I think let me just use my before I hand over to Hurin. So basically, it's what about we do ATD. So we published we started in 2006, right? So we have the 4 business arm: consulting, coaching, learning, and event, right? So we are offering all the so-called industry best practice training and certification program for architects, right? From the ISA with all the specialization, right? The open group from TOGAF, Archimate, and the business architect, right? From the ISACA, all the enterprise governance, from the ITIL, as well as the DevOps. Yeah. Okay, with that, I think I will hand over back to Hurin and also later to Shavini. Thanks.